the methadone in mosque program for heroin addicts, which is taking place inshallah this year in Pulau Pinang. Again, because I think those reminders, and of course, as you can see earlier, it really is deeply steeped in understanding if you want to change how people understand religion, especially Islam, then you have to, of course, reach the influencers. Now, I wanted to read, actually, Nurul Izzah, because he did training for even leaders in my organization. I wanted to read one of the introductory words from the Grand Party, retired Grand Party of the Niger State Sharia Court of Appeal, Sheikh Nuruddin's father, Dr. Sheikh Ahmad Lemu. Young Muslims should know, therefore, that the work of a jurist is more like that of a doctor than a mathematics professor. So the qualifications of a jurist make him or her different from the scholar of the Quran, Mufassir, or scholar of Hadith, Muhaddith. So traditionally, only a faqih, mufti or mujtahid would be qualified to issue religious verdicts, fatwas, and not a muhaddith, mufassir, or anyone else. Sadly, neither Google nor YouTube identify what the specializations of online speakers and writers are. I leave it to the work of Sheikh Omar to do this later, through Yakin and influencing. But my main point is, as someone who has been training and involved on the ground, dealing with the real power terror, which is Boko Haram in Nigeria, what are the key challenges that you face? The key hindrances and the lessons to be learned in every country whatsoever in dealing with fanatic extremism, especially encountering the ideologies that fuel their belief that violence is acceptable. This is Maria.
Question. I think firstly, I would say everywhere we have seen violent extremism, or what you would call heretical Muslim groups, they have usually appeared where a vacuum of relevance has been created by orthodoxy, where mainstream scholars have very often so aligned themselves with political leaders that the scholars do not correct leadership. They don't talk about the poor, they don't talk about the oppressed. They have been given hajj tickets, helped with their mosques, given various incentives that have unfortunately neutralized their ability to be the conscience of the community. And so when people at the lower deck of the ship can no more rely on these scholars to speak on their behalf, the Prophet ﷺ said the greatest jihad is to tell the truth to a tyrannical ruler. And you would have thought that the God consciousness, piety, sense of responsibility of scholars would make them sufficiently independent and courageous enough to tell truth to power. Where that is lacking, we find it creates a space where extremists decide they will solve their problems their own way. One way they do that is to delegitimize mainstream scholars, to point to their alignment with power as a reason why they should not be trusted. And when that happens, you can call 150, 200 scholars to a country to counter ISIS or counter Boko Haram. The youth no more listen to you, because when they were in need, you weren't there. So I would say a lot of extremist groups are actually, in their view, trying to reform when they are not helped, and nobody cared about their needs. And so when you get a group that's not very educated, who have legitimate aspirations but illegitimate methods. Unfortunately, when you combine that with a corrupt society, third world justice systems, poorly trained security services that sometimes make a bad problem worse, it never ends as good news, unfortunately. So it's really messy, it's not easy to deal with the grievances, it's not easy to get scholars to be listened to. And so we have to start identifying who are the scholars that have been critical of government, the scholars that the government and the politicians don't like. Yeah, the ones that resonate more with the oppressed, with the next group that would be recruited into violent extremism, to identify them and get them to be the ones who counter the arguments of extremists. It's a very delicate task. It requires a lot of careful strategy, consultation with people who are closer to where the pain is felt. But I feel, just in line with what Sheikh Umar said, if we don't care about the pains of people, yeah, they'll eventually find a way to have a better future, an outlet, and unfortunately, it may sink the ship.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Nurul. And I go to our third panelist. I think, it's not just me, but many of us feel very honored to address Sheikh Yasir Qadi. He's a giant in Islamic scholarly circles. And classically trained scholars also able to speak authoritatively about matters of classical theology. I was also trained as an engineer, and just to make sure your generalization on engineers is justified, in the Sufan Group report 2016, they found that the number of foreign fighters flying to Syria, to Daesh, the least of course came from Indonesia. Number two, Malaysia has more foreign fighters per capita, was Malaysia, just about 200 for that year. Certainly not as many as the ones experienced in, just 100 Muslims, majority Malaysia, flying to the Daesh in 2016. But surprisingly, they found some engineers to be in the group. Not all, but I think because they felt that they were lacking in Islamic knowledge, and of course we haven't made Sharia intelligence available everywhere. But the point is, sometimes that vacuum, it speaks to what Sheikh Nurul Izzah mentioned. But I was also struck by one of your lectures, because when you talk about influence, one of the key things that people are influenced with is the fact that ISIS, they come up with 9.3 billion tweets, representing all tweets generated in the Arabic language in 2015. So their powers and control and command over the social media is astounding. So that's why I was really struck by your 2016 lecture. You gave a lot of great lectures, of course, but back then it was the life of Ali radiallahu anhu, which you mentioned earlier. And you asked a very controversial question. As we face the murderous courage of ISIS and Al Qaeda, of course, as you mentioned, knowing there are grievances, etc., but still, extremist and unacceptable. You asked, well, we know them today to be ISIS or Al Qaeda. So who were the original? And I felt that was really important because it places in context that the forms of extremism we see today in the guise of Al Qaeda and ISIS is not a modern conception. Even during the time of the Prophet, and most notably his Sahaba, Ali bin Abi Talib, there was extreme fanatics. And one of them, of course, in the pursuit of monetary gains, insulted the Prophet ﷺ and exclaimed by calling him just by his name. He said, and exclaimed that our beloved Prophet was unfair because the ghanimah, the money that he got, wasn't sufficient. And of course, that brought about the whole background of the Khawarij, or Hajurites, as you said. Those who basically left Ali arrogantly. So for me, the question for you, in light of this, how do we fight this scourge of misinformation? How do we win over those in the public domain, especially the youngsters, as you know, when the Khawarij have gained complete control and influence through the media? People around the world are coming across their material. I met one 14-year-old. She attended my public lectures, but she also was en route flying to Syria. And we were in the lockup, and I remember, I was telling her, do you know, in 5 minutes, what can you say, right? I didn't have time to play her YouTube videos of yours. But the point is, if a 14-year-old Malaysian girl is susceptible to that, we just need to do more. So what would be your suggestions of effective measures for young people exposed in the social media scene to manage the challenges?
That's a very profound and very important and necessary question. I'll try to summarize my thoughts. This phenomenon of radicalization, this phenomenon of Western, especially Western people joining these radical groups, has been studied academically, psychologically. Interviews have been done. There's a number of academic papers that have been written about them. And of course, I also have taught at universities about fundamentalist radicalism. To summarize, there's two things that we can utilize. First and foremost, there is of course the theological, there is the Islamic, to study the history of Khawarijism and then to teach Muslim communities what is the reality of Khawarijism. There are characteristics that the Prophet told us about. Arrogance towards religious scholarship, like the man came to the Prophet himself and dismissed him. The Prophet said they have foolish dreams. We see this in the radical groups. They're all young to develop Islam, generally speaking. 19, 20, 25-year-olds are the ones, rarely you find 40, 50, but the general norm. They're young, they're naive, they're foolish. The Prophet said their speech is sweet, but their actions are deadly. So they have slogans that are really good. They have slogans that mesmerize, but then they're going and killing innocent people. Right? So their speech might be enticing, but then their actions are deadly. So these are characteristics we need to keep on teaching and preaching to our fellow Muslims. But there's another level as well, and that level is, I think that Sheikh really referred to this. And this was really awkward for me as an American cleric, especially in the early 2000s when ISIS was on the rise, Al-Qaeda was still around and others around, where there was a New York Times article about me, you could read it, a cover time story about me. It's called Why Yes, Holly wants to talk about jihad. My point was, in order to counter these radicals, we need to understand that some of their grievances are legitimate, some of them. We need to, it's like the pressure builder, the pressure cooker. You need to allow that pressure out. If you try to stop that legitimate pressure, you're literally cooking a time bomb. And it's an awkward question as an American, because I'm not anti-American. I love my country. I was born and raised in my country. But question arises, as an American, can we not point out that our foreign policy is a direct cause for some of that radicalization? Can we not point out that invading lands and bombing people is going to generate some blowback? So how do you navigate through this awkward? I'm not sympathizing at all with the radicals, but I do not sympathize with my own country's foreign policy as well, right? Now to point that out, you are painted as a fifth column. You're painted as a sympathizer with the radicals. And so there's this binary, and unfortunately our president of the past began this when he said you're either with us or against us. No, this binary is wrong. And we need to speak out as patriotic citizens, as loyal citizens. Look, we disagree with our own foreign policy, and there will be blowback. When you're going to bomb people and invade lands, what else is going to happen? Now, if you're going to have clerics that can't even say that, which is, as Sheikh Nurul Izzah was talking about, the official clerics. If you're going to have clerics who cannot even criticize, the only people that are speaking the truth are the radicals, right? As our Prophet said, they have sweet slogans. The only people saying those slogans are the radicals. Then what's going to happen? Their message will not appear radical. Their message will appear just. So one of the solutions to add is this awkward reality of recognizing that some of their grievances are politically legitimate. In in fact, the number one cause of radicalism is non-Islamic theology, which is politics. Iraq is a classic example. In the history of Iraq, 2,000 years, there has never been a suicide bombing up until 2004 when the Americans invaded. Coincidence? The Quran has been there, the Sunnah has been there, the Sharia has been there, the Abbasid Caliphate was based in Baghdad. There was never a suicide killer or attacker in the history of the Abbasid Caliphate. It's not Islamic texts that are directly causing radicalism. It's one aspect. It's a misinterpretation. Fact of the matter is, good religion brings out the best in people, but bad religion brings out the worst in people. But it needs a context from within which it can come. So to summarize, to counter this message, you need a two-pronged attack. Number one is religious, but that's only going to be half effective. It's not going to be fully effective. Religious education is necessary, and inshallah, scholars are doing that. But there must also be a political mechanism. What do you expect of people to do that are being bombed? What do you expect of people to do that are being treated unjustly? If nobody is going to speak up for the oppressed other than the radicals, then their message will become mainstream. So there must be a political solution as well.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Yasir. And now I come to your voted questions, so Slido, for those of you who have participated. Number one question is very explosive. I hope Sheikh Umar is ready. Yeah. Okay. I have to be transparent. So in the question that was mentioned, specifically asking Sheikh Umar, how do Islamic groups manage the support of other groups whose ideology contradicts Islam? Example, LGBT, but may have common goals.
So my approach to this is actually a simple one, and it's one that, frankly, I employ very openly and directly with those groups, including with LGBT groups, that instead of, right now in polarized politics, at least the way that America functions right now, what you have are very broad platforms. So you have a platform with 25, 30 issues, and then a group forms around these platforms, and so everyone needs to sign off on this entire platform, and you, in the name of intersectionality, agree with all of these issues. I propose a different type of politics, which is choose specific issues and then broaden the coalition. So smaller platforms, bigger coalitions, not bigger platforms and smaller coalitions, which is contributing to the polarization. I think that we need to be, we shouldn't be disagreeable or hateful with anybody. That's not our ethos. That's not our mojo. That's not how we treat people. The basics of treating everyone with dignity, that's there. But as far as what things that we can advocate for, what we can work for, what we can unite upon, we take issues that we agree upon and we work together on those specific issues. And that's not just true for one community, that's true for all communities. So I don't want to even single out the LGBT community in that regard. Clearly there are red lines for us theologically, but at the same time, that doesn't mean we can't work together on the things that we do agree upon. And in the process of that, we usher in, hopefully, a more harmonious way of living and coexisting in general in the United States. And I say that, by the way, even though I am typically on the left politically on political issues, because that's the approach that I've taken, I have been able to work with people that are center-right, that have not gone to the crazy alt-right Donald Trump, insanity that has pulled people in that direction. Particularly in the faith community, there are people that are, that are not leftists, that are center-right within the United States, and I've formulated faith coalitions with them. We work together on issues. We should work together on issues. We find areas of common ground and formulate coalitions on the basis of those areas of common ground, and then learn how to navigate and negotiate our differences with civility and harmony in the public space when we can agree upon it.
Thank you, Sheikh Umar. And the next question I will ask Sheikh Nurul is the failure in knowledge and education. These were cited as the main causes of the Ummah's current difficulties. Now, does this mean, in your view, should or should not religious education be looked at and made relevant again? and how important is it, especially when you talk to parents in various cities in Malaysia. There's always that issue, and how much of Islamic and religious education content should be in it. So perhaps your comments to discuss it.
Couple of things. Firstly, it's important that education is not trying to just produce A-class students, but better human beings. We have very educated communities that have been very prejudiced. During the Holocaust, Ali was mentioning, that was not carried out by uneducated people. That wasn't carried out by people who weren't scientists and economists. Some of the most corrupt people we have found, and I can speak for my country, are very educated. You say, well, messed up Nigeria. It's not the uneducated. And so the question, I think, for every parent is, how does my child come up as a good human being, with a spiritual legacy that I'm comfortable with the kind of character that we try to emulate as we see in the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so the question of quality education, I think, is something that every religious individual, whether Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Jew, anybody, would be concerned about. When it comes to, however, what we see, and I can't speak for Malaysia because of my limited knowledge of what happens there, but I can say, at least for Nigeria, probably the same in many other places. Even in the sciences, it takes usually around 5 years for developments in society that need students to be trained in to get into the curriculum. In other words, when there's an issue and we say, okay, there's a new piece of technology, there's a new discovery made in chemistry or physics, that the curriculum has to change, it's usually about 5 years later that the professors and everybody and ministry have agreed, and then it gets into curriculum. I happened to be on a board that was to review, actually to develop a curriculum for a new university in Nigeria. And we decided, okay, let's see the existing curriculum of about 5 other universities. We have lived with Boko Haram and that challenge for over 10 years, and nothing in the curriculum, any of these universities had anything to do with preparing the teachers, this is university, for countering violent extremism. We have had interfaith tensions, violence in Nigeria. There was nothing in peace building in the curriculum that was preparing students to be peace builders. Sulhu, peace building, just similar to what Sheikh Umar was saying. When the Prophet did this treaty of Hudaybiyah, this was a treaty with mushrikun, with idol worshippers. You don't allow their idol worshipping to get into the way of a more peaceful society, which is best for all. And so, what we find is, from UNICEF to the Ministry of Education, they seem to be more interested in better English, better maths, better chemistry, but nobody seems to be very concerned about better human beings. And so, I think in the religious curriculum, what we find is it's nearly Stone Age. And if you look at the speed at which things are changing, you would actually say this is nearly prehistoric. When you look at the curriculum, and I'm speaking for Nigeria, And we conduct training programs for lecturers of Islamic studies and Islamic law to make the curriculum for secondary schools more relevant to the reality of the students than just preparing them to get admission into university. And so I think one way forward, which I think the Institute is doing quite well, we do something on our own scale in Nigeria, is to conduct surveys to find out what are the challenges that young people are facing, so that education doesn't just become supply-led of what do we want to teach you, but demand-led too. What are those things you want to know? Because if you don't give it to them, they'll go online. You don't know where they'll get that information from. And lastly, the teaching of religion in a critical manner. Sheikh Yasser was mentioning Ibn Taymiyyah's discussion on the importance of reason and how reason and revelation are compatible. Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali actually used a metaphor. He said the relationship between reason and revelation is similar to the relationship between the eyes and light. That to say you are going to use your reasoning without the guidance of revelation is like moving around with your eyes open in the dark. But to say you are going to use revelation without good sound reasoning is like moving around in broad daylight with your eyes shut. You will find the furniture with your chin. So I think it's important to teach young people to think more critically about Islam, about life, and that's becoming even more important as we have a very rapid change.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Nurul. That's a very good answer. Now, the question I have to ask Sheikh Yasser Kadi is with regards to Islamophobia. One of the persons said, while I agree with Islamophobia being our current problem, isn't the main issue the lack of understanding and practice of Islam beyond the form of ibadah? As such, what would you recommend the role of a Muslim politician be in facing the leader of Islamophobia?
I think that's a very profound question which has already proposed its answer within the question, that isn't one of the main causes of Islamophobia we ourselves as Muslims not doing our job properly. And in fact, this is something very true. It is true that some of Islamophobia is based upon bigotry and racism. But we have to ask ourselves, again, before we point fingers at others, what have we done? If you look at the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, the first 40 years, he was not preaching a new kalimah. He was not preaching a new theology. He was not preaching a new faith. What was he doing? Most Muslims, they skim over those 40 years. They begin the seerah with but if you think about it, the Prophet ﷺ was 40 years not yet appointed to be a prophet, 23 years a prophet. What were those 40 years for? Do you think that it was just a waste? Do you think that Allah didn't have a divine plan? Those 40 years laid the foundations for his credibility for the next 23. What was he doing for those 40 years? Remember when he came back from Wadi Hira, his wife Khadija told him, what did she say? No, by Allah, you will never be misled astray. Why? Look at her list, look at her description. What she said is the CV, is the resume of the Prophet ﷺ. You are good to your family. You feed the hungry. You shelter those who have no shelter. You give clothes to those who don't have any clothes. You're merciful to the wayfarer. And you help in every good cause. The last one was just open free for all. Any good thing, you're at the forefront. The first revelation after the kalimah was not to pray to Allah 5 times a day. The first commandment after worshipping Allah, the first commandment was to leave idols and worship one God. But what was the first commandment after the kalimah? It wasn't prayer, it wasn't the Hajj, it wasn't fasting Ramadan. It was وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. The believers are those who give their food even though they need it to the poor, the beggar, the wayfarer, the prisoner of war, and they say to them, we are giving you food not because we want your thanks, We want our Lord to reward us. Of the earliest of revelations, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Have you not seen the one who rejects the day of judgment and rejects religion? Why does he reject religion? What is the characteristic of the one who rejects religion? فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. He is the one who is unkind to the orphan and does not encourage the giving of food to the hungry. Notice, orphan and hungry, feeding food, giving shelter. Unfortunately, for all too many of us, Islam has become rituals. Now, I'm not dismissing that. Rituals are a part of Islam, but it is one part of Islam. When our Prophet migrated to Medina, what was the first advice he gave? It is recorded in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Salam, the rabbi of Medina. The rabbi of Medina welcomed the Prophet to Medina, and he said, I heard his first lecture. What was the first lecture? 4 phrases. O mankind, ayyuhan nas, spread peace, afshu salam, spread the greetings. Number 2, at'imu ta'am, feed the hungry. Number 3, be good to your family. Number 4, pray when everybody is asleep. Rituals is 1 out of 4, and it's the end, by the way, the very end. Number 1, spread salam and peace. Number 2, feed the hungry. Feeding the hungry was the first commandment. So I agree. Some xenophobia is indeed a part of Islamophobia, but I also ask ourselves, if the Muslims had followed the seerah of the Prophet, and if the Muslims had been associated with feeding the hungry and sheltering the orphan, if the Muslims did their job and we did our job, then really, would Islamophobia have spread the way that it has been? So I completely agree with the question, and I criticize ourselves before we criticize the others. Let us live up to the mercy of our Prophet ﷺ. Let us do what he did, and then inshallah that is going to be one of the primary ways to battle Islam.
Thank you very much. Now, Sheikh Omar, I think we don't really have much time for one more round of questions for individual speakers, but I think maybe each one could answer based on the questions asked, and this will be the final one. If I understand completely, they were asking about how do we make the environment or the key important issues on earth in life as the priority for Muslims in talking about challenges they have to face, rather than zeroing completely sort of minor issues, perhaps in the realm of fiqh al-awlawiyat, the priorities, whether it's in activism, whether it is in our day-to-day life. Just last few words from the three of you. I think the focus is environment, basically with Australia burning, Southeast Asia forever facing the haze issue. One would think the Muslims, Ummah, would focus on environment or more pressing issues rather than,
So what I think is the beauty of our religion is that it is a complete way of life. And Allah has allowed people to discover their own passions and talents under the umbrella of Islam. Alhamdulillah, we are thankful to Allah. There are religious texts we can quote to be green. For example, the hadith of Ibn Majah, that the Prophet said, even if you are sitting next to a river, do wudu with moderation and don't waste water. Think about that. Even if the river is flowing, do wudu in moderation and don't waste water. You can waste water even when the water is flowing next to you. And the Quranic ayah, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَكُمْ خَلَائِفَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. He is the one that has made you custodians of this earth. We are custodians of this earth. Allah will ask us. And about animal rights, our Prophet has over 20 ahadith about animal rights. That a camel, of course, this is a miracle. The camel came and started speaking in his language. The Prophet consoled the camel, hugged it, and then said, where is the owner of this camel? It has complained that you are malnourishing it, not feeding it and eating it. Then he said, fear Allah with regards to these animals that cannot talk. Allah will ask you about them. This hadith is in Bukhari. Fear Allah. These animals cannot ask you, Allah will ask you about them. My point is as follows. Perhaps in today's lecture we didn't mention environment and being green and conscious, but that's because we have our own fortes and niches and specialities. Those of you who are interested in the environment, discover Islamic texts and what our scholars have written, and there's plenty, and go forth and preach and teach the people. Alhamdulillah, our religion is diverse enough. Not everybody can do everything, but each one of you can do something. So understand Allah has given us different passions, different talents, different fortes. Let everybody discover their passion and talent, and then try their best to better society. I agree, I fall short of not always mentioning green issues, environmental issues. I agree, and definitely needs to be done. But at the same time, the world is open, and the podium is open for anybody. So, bottom line, and I said this yesterday in our meeting that we had, the Sahaba, the companions, were not all the same wavelength. There were those who were warriors, there were those who were scholars, there were those who were financiers, there were those who were poets. The Prophet cultivated, that's what a real leader does. He cultivated everyone's talent and he put them on the spotlight when they deserved it. Those of you that are interested in any issue, Allah's not going to ask you, why didn't you become a scholar if you're not scholarly inclined? That's not how the only way to get to paradise. A woman entered paradise because she treated a dog gently, right? Those of you that are passionate about these causes, go forth, form NGOs, join an NGO. Do something, because when you stand in front of Allah, Allah's not going to ask you why you didn't become more cinema. Allah's going to ask you, what did you do with your talent and your potential and your background? And if you can say to Allah, I did this based on what I can do, inshallah, you will enter paradise based on that.
Sheikh Omar, since he answered quite completely, I would like to ask another question that was stated. How then do you unite the various stakeholders in Malaysia, especially the Muslim stakeholders who are of different minds and backgrounds? What would be your suggestion in uniting the Muslim stakeholders who have different views on many things to be on the same page about Islam? Apparently they are not on the same page, maybe there's something.
You should ask me the environmental answer. Yes, you are actually. I had an environmental answer. No, I had an environmental answer. That's all this thing when it comes to sex. I think that, look, one of the things that ends up happening is that unfortunately we usually wait for something tragic to force us out of our complacency. The reality is that in the United States, as the Muslim community has come under greater threat, it has forced us across different groups and sects. We still have work to do, but to put those differences aside and to work together. And oftentimes in our complacency and our comfort, we dig our heels into our trenches. What I would say is that we need to be bold enough and brave enough, and just as I said, don't think that coming to the table means that you diminish yourself. It does not diminish yourself. If we are working on how to coexist with other faith communities, on how to live with one another in harmony, despite those differences of opinion on who God is, then certainly we can have those types of sit-downs and those types of meetings without blurring the lines. We do not have to cast away our differences. We can still mention our differences. We can still be open about them. But at the same time, we need to set that example, and the time is now. It is very urgent. And to Sheikh Yasser, just to the environmental ethics thing on that note, though, because I do think it's connected all together. Just as I said, East and West, the dichotomy is kind of going away, just like Dawud al-Hawd and Dawud al-Islam. I think the East and West is also going away. Climate change is one of those examples, which is a global issue. And Allah said, that corruption has appeared on the land and on the seas because of what man's hands have earned. This is one of those issues that's going to force people around the world and communities to come together to literally deal with something that is threatening our very existence. And so I think that we need to preempt that in all of our different affairs. Don't always wait for someone to force you to be together. If there was a tragedy that befell all Muslims in this country, that you would not care when you're under that persecution about whether or not that person next to you belongs to the same madhab or not. You're going to help that person, support that person, work with that person. Don't wait for someone to force you together. Try to establish that from now and let that be your motivation, let that be your ethos and how you deal with everyone else.
Thank you so much. Question Ruby, the final question. We know that Boko Haram and different extremists, just a small group of fanatics, but wield a huge influence. They'd like you to share in terms of what Nigeria is planning with regards to the high palace of Sharia intelligence. You've been training, of course, but we hear that even in Nigeria, facing Boko Haram for 10 years, there's a vision that is trying, that everyone's trying to go towards. So maybe you can share that with all of us as a
there's actually, we call it, there's a Vision 2025 and a Vision 2030 of the Da'wah Institute of Nigeria Islamic Education Trust, and we're working with other organizations to get full buy-in, even if that vision has to be modified slightly. Vision 2025 is to make Niger State the most Sharia intelligent state in Nigeria, and Vision 2030 is to make Nigeria a center of excellence in the same subject area of Usulul Fiqh, Qawaid, Maqasid. The idea is really, with Ray Kroc, the guy who started Coca-Cola, his vision was everyone in the world should just taste Coke. Just taste. Do you like it, do you not like it? That's it. You don't, just taste Coke. That was his own. For us, just taste Usul, Qawaid, Maqasid. Just taste it. Usually that generates the curiosity to go beyond the taste. And what we think that would do is, from the side of the scholars, it would help them appreciate that unity is not uniformity, and difference of opinion is not disunity. In movies, you need alien attack on humanity to unite humanity. We don't need, we've got enough poverty to be united. There's so much. And one project that we're trying to tie up with that is with imams and religious leaders and community leaders is something we get from the hospitality industry. And we would discuss, I think we had this discussion some time ago, what would be the difference, or what is the difference between a 5-star hotel and a 2-star hotel? And it would be the kind of services, the cleanliness, the courtesy, just service in particular. The question then would be, what would be the difference between a 5-star mosque and a 2-star mosque? Would it be structure? If we said the Prophet's mosque was actually the best, and that's 5-star, then it's not structure. We would want to see about cleanliness, we would want to see what services the community gets from the mosque. Are we able to help poor people? Are we able to help build interfaith relations? We look at all the Prophet did in his mosque. Can the mosque be a source of rahmah, of compassion to the community? Can it be something that everybody sees as a blessing to the community? And I think if communities can get together and ask themselves, what are our local problems? So think locally, but act locally. Yes, think globally too. From planting trees, there's an environmentalist spot in me too, unfortunately. No, unfortunately, alhamdulillah. Yeah, I'm with the Nigerian Environmental Society. Yeah, and this issue, the Prophet ﷺ said, if the day of judgment was to come upon you when you were about to plant a tree, go ahead and plant it. There must be a reason why God revealed the story of Noah, who was really probably the first environmentalist protecting biodiversity. Can't save humanity, save other creatures. Thank you.
So please join me in thanking our wonderful scholars. And I'm sorry for organizing to exceed the time limit, but again, thank you very much for coming here and sharing with all of us your wonderful insights. Salaam alaikum.
Thank you, Yang Muhammad Nurul Izzah, for moderating the forum session. Thank you to the panelists for shedding light on issues